Okay, buenos dias, guys. We're going to talk about how to tell time in Spanish, and it's going to seem a lot more difficult than it is. When we tell time, we follow some basic rules, so having your notes is very, very important, and understanding how a clock works is important as well. So we have our regular face, we have the 1 through 12 would indicate the hour. And then there's 5 minutes in each increment, right? So this would be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, all the way up to 55. And 00 would be the hour exactly. So right now, if you look at this, the little hand is pointing towards the 12, so that means it's 12. The big hand is pointing towards the 4, so that would be 20 minutes. So the way the clock is right now, that time would be 4:20, okay? 4:20. Now, for our purposes in Spanish, we're always going to use a complete sentence. So what I would say is son las, and that basically means that it is. I would use the hour first, so son las 12. And because it's 20 minutes, I would say son las 12:20. Okay, so here's my complete sentence. Son las 12:20, that would be 4:20. All right, now I'm going to erase that and I'm just going to talk about some specific things here. The most important thing that we have to look at when we're telling the time is the minutes. We have to look at the minutes. The minutes are going to tell us a lot of stuff. Now, we also have to look at the clock and divide it in half both ways, so we have basically the clock is set up in quarters. The word for quarter in Spanish is cuarto, cuarto. It's very similar to 4, which is cuatro. Cuarto, cuatro. We're changing the R and the T. Cuarto means 1/4. So whenever the minute is exactly at 15 or 45, it's going to be cuarto, cuarto, which means it's a quarter of the clock. In this case, it's quarter after the hour, and in this case, at 45, it's going to be quarter to the next hour. When it's exactly 00 minutes, it's called en punto. That means you are exactly on an hour, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, on the dot. En punto basically means on the dot. 30, halfway, would be y media. So whatever the hour is, and 1/2. So those 4 particular minutes, 00, 15, 30, and 45, all have a special situation where instead of using the number, we're going to use the words. So if it's, let's go ahead and change this up and let's make this, okay, let's say it's 2:15. So the little hand's pointing to the 2, the big hand's pointing to the 3. Okay, that would be 2:15. The way we would say that would be son las 2:15. Okay, son las 2:15. Now, let's change the minutes, and let's say it's 2 o'clock on the dot. 2 o'clock on the dot. Okay, my special situation, 00's en punto. So again, I'm looking here. There's my key right there, the minutes. I have to look to the minutes. So because the minutes are 00, now I have this special circumstance here, en punto. So now what I would say is son las 2 en punto. Okay? So far, so good. If it's not on the dot anymore, and now all of a sudden it's 2:30, I would change punto, en punto, to y media. So now, again, here's my key. I'm looking at the minutes. 2:30. Son las 2, and then this would be y media. Okay, so now it's 2:30. Now, the most confusing part about telling the time in Spanish when we have our minutes is you have to understand the minutes, 0, 0, all the way through 30 is going to use a particular word. It's going to use E. It means and. So whatever time it is, and however many minutes. Think of it that way. Now where it gets confusing is when we go from the minutes 31 to 59. So when we're 01 to 29, we use the word E. We're adding however many minutes. If it's 4:19, you would say it's 4 and 19 minutes. Son las 4:19. 4 and 19. Now, here's where we get a little bit confusing, but if you think about it, put a little thought, you should be okay. If when I look at the minutes, and the minutes are in between 31 and 59, okay, now listen to this. I have to bump up to the next hour and subtract. So, let's take an example and let's look at 45 because we have that special word. So if my long hand is here and my short hand is here, right? So now, actually, since it's 2:45, that little shorthand is going to be a little bit closer to the 3, okay? So if this time is 2:45, my key is the minutes. I see my minutes are more than 30, so 31. So to say this, I have to bump up to the next hour, which would be 3, and then I have to subtract 15 minutes. That's what menos means. It means minus. So now I'm looking at this time and I'm saying, okay, 2:45 is like saying it is 3 o'clock minus a quarter, or 15 minutes. And to say that in Spanish, we would say, son las 3 menos cuarto. Okay? So this is where it gets a little confusing. The most important thing that you have to look at is the minute. The minutes, the minutes, the minutes. And again, if our minutes are 0, 0, all the way up to 30, we're going to use the word E. If it's 0, 0 exactly, we're going to say en punto. If it's 15 exactly, we're going to say y cuarto. If it's 30 exactly, we're going to say y media. Okay? Any other number that's not one of those 3 specific, 0, 0, 15, or 30, for example, if it's 4 minutes after, or 7 minutes, or 23 minutes, or even up to 29 minutes, you'll use the number. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's say it is, let's use 3 for the hour, and let's say 3:10, because that's what time we get off of school, and everybody likes the time we get off of school. So now it is 3:10. Okay, it's 3:10. My key is look here at the minutes. So I see that my minutes are in between 0 and 30. So I'm going to say son las, I say the hour first, 3. I have to use the word y, and now I'll just use the number. Since it's 10, it would be son las 3:10. And that basically translates to it is 3 and 10 minutes. So far, so good? I hope so. Okay, now, let's get a little confused here. All right. So let's change the minutes, and let's go between 31 and 59. Okay, so let's say, let's put the little hand in between the 5 and the 6. Okay, and let's say it's pointing at the 8. So this means it would be 5:40. So my time would be 5:40. Okay, 5:40. Good. All right. Okay, so my complete sentence again would be son las. Now, this is where it gets tricky, so again, pay careful attention to this. I'm looking at my minutes, that's my key. I look here and I see 40. 40 falls in this range between 31 and 59. So I need to use the word menos, which means I need to bump up to the next hour and subtract to get to the right minutes. Okay, so 5:40, so bump up to the next hour, son las 6. Now for the minutes, I have to subtract. There are 60 minutes in an hour. I am 20 minutes away from this next hour, right? Because 40 plus 20 equals 60. So it's son las 6 menos 20. Okay? So now what I'm saying is it's 6 minus 20 minutes. If I go to 6 o'clock and I subtract 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, well, that's the same thing as saying 5:40. That's the most difficult thing when it comes to telling time, is understanding that between those numbers of minutes, 31 through 59, I have to do a little math. So I have to go up to the next hour, subtract from 60, again, 60 minutes in an hour, and that would give me whatever the minute is. That's the one you're going to have to practice, and you have to train your ear to thinking about when you hear y and menos. Okay? Now, the last thing we're going to add to this is that we can say that a time is in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening or night. So basically, you want to think about maybe about 6 o'clock. Well, it really has to do a lot to do with the sun. So you would say in the morning from like maybe after midnight till noon the next day. Once it gets to noon, 12 o'clock en punto, right? Son las 12 en punto, and that would be p.m. It becomes de la tarde, in the afternoon. Now this is where it gets a little hazy. When the sun goes down, we would go to de la noche, which would mean in the evening or at night. So kind of think about it like that. Generally, if you make it, say, 6, 7 o'clock, past that, you can say de la noche. Okay? All right. So let's do a couple of examples, and then hopefully you'll get it. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, and I'll try to explain it to you. But try to figure this out on your own, okay? So, let's see. All right. Let's say it is... let's do 3:25 p.m. Okay? So our little hand would be there. Our big hand would be there. And we know that this is in the afternoon because it's p.m. Okay? So what I would say is I'm looking at the minutes. I see 25 is in that range between 01 and 29, so I need the word y. We're going to have son las, the hour, tres. I need the word y. And then it's 25 minutes, so it would be 25. And then I'm going to add that it's in the afternoon. De la tarde. So, it is 3:25 in the afternoon. There's an example there. Now let's go the other way so you can see again how to go through subtracting. All right, let's say that the little hand is pointing in between the 1 and the 2. And let's say it's pointing in between the 2 and the 3. And the big hand is pointing at the 10, okay? And this is, let's say this is in the morning, right? So this is in between midnight and noon. So this is when you're sleeping. So the time would be 2:50 in the middle of the night. So this would be 2:50. However, it's early morning. So we would still use de la mañana, okay? So son las. The hour is 2. However, because this is my first read, the minutes, 31 through 59, I fall in that range. I need to use menos, so I have to bump up because I'm going to subtract back. So it'd be son las 3 menos 60 minus 50 equals 10. So I'm subtracting 10 minutes. So it'd be son las 3 menos 10 de la mañana. All right. So this can easily get confusing. Now, just to help you be a little bit more confused, there's one more thing we have to go over. Remember, in Spanish, everything must agree in gender and number. Okay, so that includes telling the time. Anytime it's 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up through 12 hours, that's more than one, so we would say son las. The exception is going to be if it is 1 o'clock. Because there's only one, I need to agree. So instead of son las, I would say es la. Now it's singular. So let's see an example. All right, let's go with the little hand is at the 1 and the big hand is at the 4. Right, so this would be 1:20. And let's say this is after lunchtime, okay? So we'll call this the afternoon. So it's 1:20 in the afternoon. All right. Because it's 1, right? I'm looking at my minutes. That's my first key. So I see 20. It's in this range. That means I need the word y. So es la. My hour is 1. Okay, so es la una. You say una instead of uno. Una. Es la 1:20. Now it's in the afternoon, so I would say de la tarde. So es la 1:20 de la tarde. It's 1:20 in the afternoon. The only time I would use es la when I'm using the word menos is if the time would fall in between 12:31 and 12:59, because this range means we got to bump up to the next hour. So if it's 12:31 through 12:59, I need to bump up to 1 o'clock so I can subtract. Let's do an example. Okay, so let's say it is, let's look at, all right, so the little hand is going to be in between the 12 and the 1, closer to the 1. And let's say it's, let's go in between the 40 and the 45. In between the 40 and the 45. So we'll say 12:43. 12:43. And we'll say this is in the afternoon too. So de la tarde, so p.m. 12:43 p.m. Okay, 43, here's my key. I see I need menos, so I go to 12. Okay, I need to bump up to the next hour. On a clock, we don't go to 13. We're not doing military time here. So we would go to the 1. That would be the next hour. So we're going to say es la una menos. Okay, so it's 43. We have to subtract 43 from 60, right? And that is 17. Pretty easy. So I need to subtract 17 minutes from 1. Es la una menos 17. That's not very neat. De la tarde. Okay, so it follows those rules, but it can get a little tricky when we're between the minutes of 31 and 59. Now the last thing, I just want to remind you that we have exceptions when we're at 0, 0, 15, or 30. So let's change this and say instead of 12:43, let's make it 12:45. Okay. If it's 12:45, I'm subtracting 15 minutes. So I would say es la una menos, I would use that special word, cuarto de la tarde. So hopefully this explanation helps you out a little bit. Look at it as many times as you need to. Look at your notes, use your notes, do the exercises. You should have looked at the video yesterday. This video should help out. We're going to do a couple of exercises tomorrow and on Friday. Next week we'll have a little quiz, and then we'll have the test towards the end of the week on Chapter 4. Hope everybody's doing well. If you have questions, ask.